All right, welcome to another episode of Jack Theology. Good to be here.
Good to see you, man.
Got this shirt just in time for this episode.
Gulf of Mexico.
It's been that way for 1,000 years, or around there,
You know,
until this year, I guess. I wore this for. I've been doing a weekly online prayer time for our church here, and I wore this today for this week's
did
prayer
anybody
time.
react with
So
you dead naming a?
I haven't got any angry emails yet, but they might be coming my way. I don't know. Yeah, so we wanted to dive in. It's just so much going on. If you uh, if you go on Trump's True Social, which I did download True Social just so I could keep up and fact check when I see different things going around. But he tweets and retweets so much during the day, it's hard to like sift through it all. And
Does he
that's kind of
actually ever govern? Like
I know,
between
yeah,
golfing and tweeting, like
yeah,
I mean, people have said the same thing, to me over the years. Do you ever actually do any work? And it is, But honestly, I mean, his level of engagement on Twitter is next level, and it's fairly clear he's actually writing by the
yeah,
style, unless
yeah,
somebody has his style down.
yeah.
I
Yeah, you can tell when it's him and when it's somebody else. You can definitely tell the difference. He so I hate to make every episode about him and what he's
I
doing,
think
but
we're kind of in that season right now over these last few weeks or months. I was kind of thinking the same thing, Jack Theology, but I mean, really, I don't know that there is any more important intersection or moment for the church than this moment right here in the U.S. Like it's a pivotal moment for the church and the direction in which it goes, and for Christians, and a lot of what is being said and done, theology is being utilized in order to kind of press one narrative or press another narrative. So yeah, we're talking about Trump and talking about politics a lot, but that's because it is all intersecting with Christianity, because the largest part of his base are self-identifying Christians
yeah, no, that's exactly it. I mean, it is the Jack theology of
of our age. Yeah.
that. Yeah, that we're
In
addressing.
1938, 1939, there was a different jacked theology
Yeah,
Christianity
yeah,
was supporting, but it's becoming more and more like the church theology today.
I know it's sad. I've been reading Stanley Hauerus's new book. The title escapes me right now, but he said basically what we say. Everything about Jesus is political, and especially as Christians, because we're declaring Jesus as Lord, and it's that is a very political statement. And so we are, whether we like it or not, as Christians, called to engage in that conversation. Obviously, you know, our political stand is behind the idea that Jesus is Lord, and so what does that mean for us as we live Jesus out in this world? I think we see a lot of Trump followers. Um, I think setting aside Jesus, we've talked and addressed that a lot. Like there's a lot of ignoring who Jesus was, and I find it interesting that yesterday, as we were recording this, was St. Patrick's Day, and most Americans use that day to go out and drink Guinness and party and all that. But he was all about Jesus. When you read about Patrick of Ireland, who became St. Patrick, his passion was Jesus. His famous prayer is about Christ being all in him and around him and through him, and his desire was to model Christ to the world. And I think we've lost that as a church. I think that's where it begins with our Jack theology. I think we've we've lost Christ. We've lost his heart. And if Christ was here today, we'd call him a woke liberal and kick him to the curb. Just bottom line is what we would do. So I think it is important that we address these things. And the biggest one that's on my heart, the biggest, I mean, it's kind of twofold, but it wraps around this phrase from Matthew 25, where Jesus says, did you welcome the stranger? You know, when I was a stranger, you welcomed me in. And, and I don't think right now Christianity is welcoming the stranger. I think there's a desire, not think, there is a desire through these culture wars that clearly Trump is fighting for right wing, conservative Christians. Number one, they don't want diversity in schools. We're seeing that they want to destroy the Department of Education so that they can go back to the way it was before that when there was diversity. We've destroyed DEI, so we don't want diversity in the workplace. We've attacked, begun attacking the LGBTQI community, where we've seen Trump retweet anti-gay in the military symbols, and then immigrants. I mean, we've seen dramatically, a bipartisan program. I mean, this was implemented by Ronald Reagan, was refugee resettlement, and expanded over the years. But whether you were Democrat or Republican, this was a valuable thing to be American, is to help refugees. And that's completely gone. And without a doubt, refugees and immigrants are strangers. And then I saw today, a friend of mine, I was thinking about it. I have to ask him, maybe we could have him on this podcast, who's active in refugee resettlement, runs an organization that does a lot of work with that. And he posted today that the State Department opened up refugee resettlement to South Africans, white South Africans.
Hmm.
And he was on a call, and they asked the leaders of these organizations if they would help resettle these refugees, and they all unilaterally said, no, we will not. So you're willing to welcome the white wealthy man and woman and family, but not, the brown or black poor. And so we're seeing definitely the stranger, the folks that Christ was passionate about, the poor, the destitute, kicked to the curb and not welcome in this country. And it's truly like, it's messing with my head. It really is. And that Christians are the driving force behind this, and continue to support him. I mean, his popularity, his approval rating keeps going up, and that's definitely coming from Christian America. So very
Yeah,
sad.
I mean, I think you're spelling out a religion that is not Christianity by any definition, and you and I both hesitate really to say something is not Christian or a person is not a Christian because everybody chooses their own pet issue to say that. But I think we are at a point where we have to say that a large number of people in the United States who claim to be Christian and who claim to be a part of Christianity are not in any way, shape, or form a part of any Christianity that mirrors anything in the Gospels from the mouth of Jesus or really anything in Scripture. Because the truth of the matter is, you're right. If Jesus were to come in today and say any of the things that he says in Scripture, he would be called a woke liberal, and we would 31% of America would crucify him again. So where we are is we're in a place where a large segment of the church, obviously a large segment of the voting bloc, obviously a large segment of conservatism, but a large segment of the church, whatever Trump says is the gospel. Whatever Trump says is the good news, for everybody. No matter what your skin tone is, no matter what your background is, no matter what your identity or sexuality is. And it's just fascinating, even when Trump pivots, they pivot with him, and then this is the right thing to do. Here's the one verse or the one sentence taken out of context that supports this so that I can say this is of God or this is of Christ and this is right. And then whenever they can't find that in Scripture, they'll say, you're asking a president to be a priest to be a pastor. I didn't elect a pastor. So it's like win-win for you, and it's lose-lose for
Yeah.
true Christianity and for Christ. It's just it's madness. And I think we really have to just start saying that this isn't a Republican thing, a conservative thing. This isn't necessarily a MAGA thing. It is literally a whole other religion that the boundaries do at this point tend to revolve around MAGA, but it's not of Christ, and none of these things that are being done are in any way, shape, or form something that Christ would want, and certainly not something that Christ would want Christians to support.
No. As you were talking, I couldn't help but think of you've probably seen it. It went viral a few weeks ago. The Driscoll clip where he was describing what a man isn't, a biblical man isn't. And he was describing Jesus. He was saying a biblical man is not single, isn't broke, doesn't own things, isn't woke and all these things. And he literally described Jesus. It was so fascinating. And that really summarizes where, I guess, cultural Christianity is. I mean, I think he summed it up well. He didn't realize it, I don't think, in the moment, but I think the juxtaposition between who Christ of the Scriptures is and who this cultural Christianity has become, is just the complete opposites. I think, where did we get where we're not welcoming, where we refuse? Like, I saw a clip where, I think it was Oklahoma. It's always Oklahoma right now. They're the ones really implementing
Oklahoma,
these Christian
Texas, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Where this lady had a everyone is welcome sign in her classroom, and it had the hands of all different colors skin coming out, and she was told to take it down by the administration, and it was just like, why would you ask that? Because it's we should be welcoming, like, if we're not all welcome to all, then that means that we're unwelcoming. We're not. There's people that we don't welcome into our midst.
I think that's where we
And
are,
that's
though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I
how is that the
I
way
think it
of
was actually
Christ?
Idaho, which Idaho's similar, but is
There you
this?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's where we
yeah.
are, right? I mean, we now, as a large portion of the nation, I don't think it's a majority, but certainly the vocal majority of the nation, as well as a large vocal portion of the church in the United States, truly not only are resisting the idea that they're not welcoming, but truly now boldface will come out and say, because Trump has given them permission to do this, the Trump effect. No, we don't welcome everybody, period. And we're not called as Christians to welcome everybody or to welcome a stranger, period. So that we're not at a place anymore where we're just avoiding it or looking the other way or pretending that we do, but then doing the opposite. But now we're able to openly say, no, we don't. God would not want this. Christ does not want this. And it's actually right and righteous for me to not want the U.S. to be a melting pot, to not welcome strangers, to not allow people who are hurting, into my backyard, or to help in any way, shape, or form. It's the anti-Good Samaritan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's disastrous, that the message that sends. It's it sends an unchristian message. It really is unchristian. But it's in the theology of conservative Christians to keep people out, right? The
Yeah.
theology is, only people like me that believe what I believe are going to live for eternity. And in a lot of ways, it starts there.
But very few people are converting or interested in people coming to church or converting to Christianity anymore. I mean, I will occasionally run across people who are still, in fact, I had one yesterday who was very conservative, but really didn't talk about politics much, but very much was trying to get an atheist, someone who's an unbeliever, into church, trying to, get them into scripture, trying to convert them, quoting from the King James, like a very traditional conservative fundamentalist person who, clearly voted for Donald Trump, clearly supports all of those things, but the conversation was centered around Christ and the scripture, but through a different lens. that I would read it. I respect that because I disagree with you, but you truly are, as much as is possible, you're truly trying to center scripture and move people towards faith, or to move towards Christ, not towards your MAGA politics. And this is the difference. That we have seen a large portion of the church become evangelists for MAGA politics, not for the
Yeah.
gospel, not for Christ. So you don't see Christians out here anymore in any way, shape, or form inviting people into a life or relationship with Christ. It's into a vote. It's into an ideology that's political, that has nothing to do, that's anti-gospel and anti-Christ. And it's just fascinating that we're trying now to convert people to Trumpism. And there's a danger, in doing the opposite, right? I mean, there's a ditch on the other side of the road as well that I think, a lot of us, myself included, maybe primarily have to avoid. I'm not going to stop talking about politics. I don't feel like everything that I say has to be a gospel presentation or has to center on Christ, but I do think that it's a gut check to say, I don't want to be the opposite of that on the opposite side of the road.
Yeah. The one thing I can agree with, the conservative Christians on, is the third wayism is not the way.
The middle road, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. The try to play both sides, to be silent. I can agree. I hear that a lot from their side, and I completely agree. Probably for different reasons, but I do think people need to make a stand, and I think people need to speak up, and I think that's part of the Jack theology of this. Is there's a silent majority. There's always a silent majority until things start to affect them, and Martin Luther King was made famous through the civil rights movement about that. And silence is complicity and all of those things. And I don't know how, as you watch these things unfold, we can sit by anymore, because it's literally biblical. I mean, literally, even if your theology is you go to heaven or hell, like, and you're like one of those that's like, not everybody's going to go to heaven, and it's going to be a small narrow road to heaven. Jesus is pretty clear in Matthew 25 about who's going to be the sheep, right? Who's going to not be tossed and thrown into the fire. And it's the people that welcome the stranger. And I just can't, like, how do you ignore this passage? And I've seen people.
I mean, I think it's fascinating. You're right, because that passage, many of us have an uneasy relationship with hell. It's certainly not a fundamentalist, Middle Ages viewpoint of hell and eternal conscious torment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in Scripture, probably, if you're going to hang your hat on hell, the clearest and most difficult passage that you have to deal with is that Matthew 25 passage from Jesus. And you're right, that Matthew 25 passage is about welcoming the stranger. It's not about being saved. It's not about praying a prayer. It's not about following the right theology or the right doctrine. It's not about avoiding abortion. It's not about any of those things. So if you are a person who truly believes in hell, and that passage, that is your keystone passage for hell, you're right. What Jesus says there, the only way to avoid it is welcoming the stranger. Did you see me in prison? Did you see me along the side of the road hungry? Did you see me in need and take care of me? What have you read your Bible? Are you paying attention? Are you plugged in? Because I'm not sure that you are. You can't avoid that. It's out of Jesus' mouth.
It, and I seen people, like, with that passage address it in the conservative side, MAGA side, and they spiritualize it, and so it becomes not reality for them, that they don't have to really welcome the stranger, so they find. But then then the flip side is, then they'll take literally our English translations when the word homosexuality comes up, right? They'll take that literally. They won't spiritualize that, or look at different, what maybe Paul meant by that. They'll just look at what we mean by the word homosexuality. So so the stranger, I mean, it's foundational. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, yeah, we should welcome the stranger. I mean, I've had a lot of dialogue, and I know you have as well, around like how do we welcome the people that are being kicked out right now, like the immigrants, the refugees, it's coming soon. It hasn't really hit hard. I mean, some of the transgender issues have hit hard already, but like
Yeah, they're
the
coming.
LGBTQ,
They're coming for white
like,
people. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's not gonna stop with gangs. It's not gonna stop with people who are brown skinned.
oh yeah,
Um,
the immigrants, yeah. But even like the lesbian and gay, I think marriages are in jeopardy. They're coming for that too. They're coming for everyone that they don't agree with culturally, and they're going to try to make it illegal for you to live. And people have already been empowered. I heard a story recently. I mean, I just like there's so much coming at us. Like I just don't even know what to do. My heart's just like breaking. It's like somebody told me that his doctor is a MAGA, um, you know, cult follower or whatever. That's the word he used, and he had to find a new doctor because he's a gay man, and the guy didn't want to treat him. And I was like, what? It's like, what world are we in? What is this? And so Trump has empowered folks to have those
yeah,
attitudes. I know.
we're going through. I don't throw around these terms lightly, and they do have very literal meanings. But we're going through an ethnic cleansing here in the U.S. We're going
Mm,
through truly a genocide. But the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, is coming primarily from people who don't hold, it's toward people who don't hold the same ideology as they do. Yeah, they don't like brown people, but worse, the fact that liberals or progressives do help, because some Christians do love and do help these people. It's a vengeance against them. It's a vengeance against the other way of living white.
yeah,
That's I mean I do think that there's a I do think that there's a dislike and a distaste for ethnic minorities, for people of color, for folks who are immigrants, for folks who are refugees, for folks who aren't like us, white CIS. Yeah, I think that's there, but for most people who are MAGA, I think it's kind of out of sight or out of mind. Shut up, just live here or whatever. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. Just be happy that you get to live in this Garden of Eden, the U.S., as long as you're not illegal or tripping any wires or anything anywhere. But I think, we're at that point where that's not good enough anymore. There's just real vengeance where it feels like everyone is taking out grievances. They feel like they have been wronged by the other side of politics. And that's just not true. CNN hasn't harmed you. Liberals and progressives haven't harmed you. You're actually being harmed by your own side and the rhetoric by your own side. You're being harmed by Fox News. You're being harmed by Trump. You're being harmed by these people who are literally spitting on democracy and the Constitution. Yesterday, the border czar, truly acting like a czar, saying, I don't care what anybody in any judicial branch says, we'll deport who the hell we want anytime.
yeah,
Doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead and do it. Hey, y'all, as a Christian, no matter what your politics are, truth, honesty, the integrity, y'all, it's not okay. But
yeah,
but we're no longer worshiping Christ anymore. We're no longer living Christianity. But we're putting that label on it in order to absolve ourselves of enough guilt and shame to be able to sleep at night.
mm. It's so true. I mean, now we're actually, like to your point, we're harming people. I mean, I'm seeing all these stories of marriages being broken up, families being broken up because of this, you know, because of ICE and those borders are, and just being a complete asshole.
That's what we
And
want. We want pain. We
yeah,
want there to be
and
maximum pain for everybody but me. And we
Christians love
assume
it.
we assume we will be exempt from that pain. And when we find out we're not exempt from that pain, occasionally somebody eyes will be open whenever that pain hits them. But it shouldn't have to take that long for us to see that it's not okay for us to desire strongly for other people to be harmed and other people to be hurt.
Yeah. Eh, yeah, and there's some satisfaction behind it, right? Like I
Yeah,
hear
there's a
it.
lot of satisfaction. You hear it and you see it in their the way they speak and the yeah.
Yeah, it's so anti-Jesus.
No, Jesus says the satisfaction should be right in caring for others, right? In being the people who go against the grain of the culture that you're in and giving justice, to those who aren't treated justly by the community that they're in, by showing compassion, how many miracles did Jesus do that involve food? When they didn't get it, he did a second. He feeds the 5,000.
Yeah,
They didn't get it. He feeds 4,000 people again.
yeah,
Jesus has continually shown us, the way in which he wants us to live in this world and in the world around us. Um, there's nothing in there of vengeance. There's nothing in there of being satisfied by other people causing pain. We're supposed to be removing people's pain, even people who deserve it. Like, isn't this the basis of the whole Christian thing? Jesus did something for you that you could not do for yourself. Jesus took your sin away because you could not take your sin away on your own. Like, he satisfied that. Like, this is the whole penal substitutionary atonement, right? Our job is to take away pain, not be satisfied by other people experiencing pain. What the hell have we become?
we have. Well, they have a distorted view of justice. They think God's justice is pain, and you make a great point because then you miss what well, even in their theology, God's justice is pain on God, not pain on neighbor, right? Or the stranger. But it's actually justice is both punishment and mercy at the same time. It is both and that, like, God's justice, the punishment side is so that he can give mercy, right? It is so that even if we experience the justice side of or the punishment side of justice, the point of that is so that then we can experience God's mercy and healing through the process of the justice.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop with the pain. And God never told us to bring the pain. He even over and over he says, I am the judge. I will bring the vengeance. I will do these things. And we don't like it because, well, conservative Christians don't like it because as they read their Bibles, they see that God's vengeance, that God's justice is actually mercy and grace. And they don't want to give that to the
No,
stranger, to the
no,
other.
it's functional atheism. In my mind, it essentially is
Yeah.
is denying the existence of a God. You don't act that way. You don't act so counter to the demands of Christ and the gospel, and believe that there is a God waiting on the other side who's not going to have something to say about that. Who many of these people say they believe in a hell, but they don't believe in a hell because they don't think they're going to end up there for the shit that they're doing. But they also don't believe in a hell because if they did, they'd be like, well, you're just going to get it in the end anyway. So I don't need to care for it now. They want people to experience hell now because they don't believe that there is a hell later or that God will send them there to that hell. They're functional atheists. In fact, worse than
Yeah.
functional atheists because they're using God to promote shit on earth that God said no, under no uncertain circumstances.
Yeah. Amen. So true. They are functional
Yeah,
atheists.
don't tell me you believe in God or you believe in hell. You don't. You just truly don't.
No, no, not functionally. Um, yeah, I mean, the whole theology is jacked. I mean, to play into the title of our podcast. I mean,
Thank you for bringing us
yeah,
back. Thank you for bringing me back
yeah.
around, Matt. I appreciate
The, no, it really is.
that.
If you think
Let me
about it,
grab you by the
'cause
collar, Kevin, lead you back to the point.
no, because there's no humility at all in any of those theologies because it's like I am the powerful one, most knowledgeable one. You have to submit to this view of theology. This one little segment of theology that throughout history of the church, it's been a very minority view, right?
Right.
that's gotten us here, which is kind of crazy to think about. And but a very American view, very very popular American view. And we think that's the way. There's no humility in that. Like there's no like learning or submitting ourselves to the process of tradition over thousands of years, and that's an antichrist as well. That's totally unchristian and jacked, you know. Um, yeah, I have I have a book somewhere. It's called The Mosaic of the Atonement, and the author writes about 5 or 6 different like atonement theories that have been believed throughout history. And the conservative Christians here in America have one specific view of the atonement
Right.
that I think that theology is the base ground for a lot of this. I mean, I think in our ramblings and discussion here, we've kind of hit it. It really comes from that, um, the substitutionary atonement stuff, and God's propitiation of His wrath onto mankind, and
But I haven't heard that word in a long time. Propitiation.
yeah,
Good, good,
uh,
good word there.
I just never forget because I'm at Rutgers a lot for chaplaincy, and there was a street preacher that used to yell that, and I went up to him and I said, "You realize that no one has any idea what that word means that you're yelling at that?" And he started yelling back at me, so I just walked away. But uh, anyways,
You should have
um,
asked him to define that word.
yeah, yeah, he probably did.
Could you please
Well,
give
did
me a
you see?
definition of
Yeah,
that word? Because
did you see that kid preacher? Uh, I saw this like documentary. There's like a kid preacher, who's like 12, 13, something, and he was just like repeating lines that like he heard from church, and he was like a very charismatic type preacher. And then he got interviewed like on ABC America or something, and they were asking him what the stuff meant that he said, and he had no
oh
idea.
no, I mean, funny
Completely
and also like
exposed.
really like the awkward. I would have felt.
Yeah, yeah. I felt bad watching it. Ugh.
It's it's like a train wreck. Like it's you know that it's just really bad, but you also can't look away from it
Yeah,
while it's
yeah. I had
happening.
to
It's
finish it out. Yeah,
yeah.
where's he gonna go with this? And he was a kid, so he didn't know what to do. So he just kind of walled up and didn't say anything. And yeah, but anyways, I think that happens a lot. People just repeat.
Well, I mean, I think that's just to bring it back around. I think that's where most of us are right now in our faith, our understanding of God. We have such a weak understanding of God that we know enough words to be able to convince ourselves and maybe the people who are close to us that we have an understanding of Christ and the gospel. But there's nothing behind it. There's no understanding at all of any of the words that we're saying.
Yeah, what is the gospel? I mean, Howard said in his book, one of his quotes I loved. Um, the gospel isn't love; it's Jesus, which
Yeah.
is he meant to be a provocative, but it's Jesus. And who was Jesus? Like he was love, but
I don't know. I don't know
um,
if honestly, I don't know if most Christians today, especially MAGA, still
I
Trump
don't know.
Christians. I don't know if you were to ask all of them, tell me what the gospel is, or if you were to even give them help and say, tell me what the good news of Jesus is. I don't know that most of them could even give you a historically, fundamentalist, conservative, evangelical answer. I don't know that any of them could even point to salvation or the cross or the remission of sin, as in that vein of thinking of being the gospel. I don't know that you'd even get that from most evangelical MAGA Christian supporters anymore. I certainly you're not going to get care for the poor, justice, a redemption of the world, a return of this earth to a Garden of Eden. No, what they want is Armageddon, and they want it now.
Yeah, I mean they think that
Sell your coat and buy a sword. All right, why don't you keep reading a few verses later?
yeah, like I honestly, you're
Don't
right. I
stop
don't
reading
even.
at that period. You're going to want to go a few more sentences into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
statement.
yeah. For a lot of them, it's a get out of hell free card, and and so like what happens here on earth, I don't think matters to them. So they prayed the prayer, and
They're good.
they can abdicate all responsibility to the scriptures because they prayed that prayer. But you brought it up earlier when we were talking about Matthew 25, that Jesus doesn't tell us to pray a prayer there. He he
He
tells us,
doesn't.
he gives us actions, right? He gives us things to participate in with him. And yeah, those folks that just pray the prayer aren't doing those things. So you kind of wonder if that prayer really worked,
Yeah.
really stuck.
Well, yeah, not even Paul says to pray a prayer. I mean, not even
No.
the strongest Paulites, are going to find a place in there anywhere, even tangentially, where Paul says, the closest thing you can get to a, salvation, you know, Matthew 25, Jesus, right? That's welcome the stranger, care for the poor, do all of these things. With Paul, I don't know what you're, but the closest thing, probably what confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, that Jesus is Lord. That statement that you used earlier.
Well, even
But
that,
what does
yeah,
Jesus is Lord mean? Jesus is Lord over what? You're essentially back to Matthew 25, at this point.
yeah, yeah. Well, was it Matthew Bates did a lot of good work on the gospel, and that word in Greek, pistos, that Paul uses, where
Yeah.
people use that for the prayer, it actually means faithfulness. So it's to be faithful, to be to proclaiming Jesus as Lord. So it's actually to live it out.
Yeah, I
Like,
was going to say proclaiming though, I
yeah,
hear that word and I immediately think speaking, but that's not the
no,
first
it's
century
it's
understanding of pistos.
it's yeah, it's a living it out. Like, we
Faithfulness.
have
Yeah.
to live this out, and
So
that
you're back to Matthew
evangelicals hate.
25.
Yeah, evangelicals hate that because it's like, well, for by grace we are saved, not of works, right? But then Paul's the next verse, it says, "But you are God's workmanship," right? Like, there's always, I mean, our professor always said there's two sides of the coin, right? There is that, yes, God does it, it's his work. Like, he does all the work coming towards us, but we participate in what God is doing. So to to reveal what's in our heart, we're actually going to do it. So if you've never done this stuff that Jesus talks about, like loving your neighbor, welcoming the stranger, like, I do genuinely got to question your salvation. Like, because there's no evidence that even though you prayed a prayer that you actually truly believe what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because if I believe in things that I say, like, I'm going to be faithful to that. I'm going to follow through with it, with my life and how I live. So yeah, I think that the works part of it is important to
Yeah, Paul
salvation.
continues says over and over, you have to have the Spirit, and it's the same Paul that said, "These are the fruit of the Spirit," and none of the fruits of the Spirit are beliefs. None of the fruits of the Spirit are
No.
words. All the fruits of the Spirit are external actions, as you say, that point towards faithfulness. Um,
And none of them call us to burn things down and tear people up and kick people to the curb either. So,
well,
uh,
5 years ago, they burnt down some cities after
but those weren't Christians either, you
They were the
know.
libs. That's who we're trying to hurt.
And get the libs. Yeah.
You got them. You got the libs. Pat yourself on the back. You have succeeded in getting the libs. You have owned them. You have dunked on the libs. You've won. Could we now just make sure that we continue to have a constitutional republic here? Like, okay, you've won.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you've owned them. You have proven it um, over and over and over again. What else is there
You
to
own the
prove?
you own the libs. Yeah. Yeah, I see that out there. That's just what Elon. That's all Elon wants to do, is to dismantle any liberal thing, which is hilarious. Which is why I brought up that, like, the refugee resettlement wasn't a liberal thing. It was actually a conservative Republican thing. And you talk to my buddy, he would tell you, outside of Trump, Republican presidents were more favorable to the refugee resettlement than even Democratic. He said before Trump, the worst president to work with was Obama. So I found that fascinating to think about, that this was actually a conservative Christian Republican thing. And now it literally was a primary thing and called a liberal, you know, money laundering systems,
Yeah,
or
I think the
yeah,
Republicans long term, in the past, and I even remember this, but if you even look back older than me, Republicans wanted to be the good guys in the world. Republicans wanted to be, and Ronald Reagan used this language, this shining city on a hill, that everybody looked to and everybody wanted to be a part. And, liberals, for better or for worse, I do think in a lot of ways were far more focused stateside and helping people and doing social things for people here. And Republicans, I think, to their credit, historically were far more engaged in
yeah,
desiring peace around the world, and even using power in order to do that, using diplomacy in order to do that, you know creating an image of the US, this shiny city on a hill, that would be attractive to people from other places coming here, and using their gifts, using their money, using their resources and their talents in order to make this country better. Like, that's capitalism, right? Like,
yeah,
Republicans were about this. So it shouldn't surprise us at all that Republicans over Democrats and liberals would have been the ones who were so interested in immigration and were so interested in refugee resettlement, because it's woven into the fabric of what they desire and how they see the US on the world stage. But no more. And we've forgotten our story.
Hmm. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and I think we are in a use a third way. We are in I mean, there's. I think MAGA is a completely different political party and movement that
It is.
you know that
It's
has
evil.
taken over. Yeah,
It's evil. It's not American. It has nothing to do with historic American values or ideals. We can debate historic American values and ideals. It has nothing to do with any of those things. It is the most selfish, self-centered, vengeful, and unchristian, unholy, anti-sacred movement. I think we could say that large term America has probably ever seen.
yeah.
It's some third thing. It is not Republican. In fact, they kicked out the conservatives. They're
No,
out.
it's
You know, it's
it's not Republican. It's something different, and I like how you said it. It's evil, and
it is. There's just no other
yeah,
word for it. I there are a whole lot of things in the world that I don't participate in, that I think are wrong, that I think are antichrist, that I will resist calling evil or heresy or those things, because it's not. I reserve that kind of language, frankly, for things that are truly abhorrent, I think, to God or to humanity, and that's where we are now. There's no looking the other way. Not giving people due process, uh, removing people to other third world, pardon the term, countries and prisons, like, without rejecting the entire judicial system, the rule of law, in order to be lawless, and then being proud of it and saying we're going to keep doing it and giving the middle finger. It's evil.
yeah,
It's truly evil, and there is, and it's a strong statement. I'm going to make it. There's truly no way to support this movement anymore, to support Trump or Trump's people anymore, and not be complicit and in partnership with evil.
mm,
Um, you're an accomplice, or more so, because you're actively involved in doing it. It's just, and beyond the national level of things, it's also Jack theology. It's abhorrent and evil from a Christian standpoint. No matter how you look at it, there's nothing
mm,
of Christ in it. It's fully and utterly anti-Christ in every way, shape, or form.
yeah.
And I'm
I think
really
that
worried.
about
I'm
sums it
really
up.
worried that folks aren't going to wake up from it.
Yeah, no, I am. My heart is broken and torn right now. I'm really disappointed in a lot of people and and groups of people and all those things. Yeah, it's hopefully people wake up. I don't know. It seems like the more that happens, the more people dig into their belief in this and get behind it. So it's sad to watch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but we'll keep yelling from the mountaintops what we see is jacked, and try our best to stay focused on things that are theological in nature and not get caught up in the weeds of some of the other crap that's out there too. Because we could spend a whole other hour on other crazy stuff that's going
Yeah,
on.
I don't know what we do. I think there will be moments where there may be opportunities for us to physically or actively do something, um, through voting or through I don't know. Certainly for many of us in our communities and in our connections, checking in on neighbors, checking in on people who are in at-risk groups, and almost everybody at this point, is in an at-risk group. It's not just people of color, who are in at-risk groups. A lot of veterans, government employees, people on Medicare, Medicaid, like there are lots of people around checking in on them. But at the end of the day, um, if I'm not able to do anything else, Matt, on the other side of all of this, I want to be able to have it said of me that Kevin wasn't silent. I think that, as I think about Germany and World War II and all of that, there were a lot of folks who really probably, they just couldn't do anything to change the direction or make any meaningful difference. But what I don't want to happen is after something like that, I wouldn't want it to be said of me that Kevin was silent.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of where I am is, I may not be able to do much, but I can open my mouth. And
Yeah.
I can at least say I'm not okay with this, and I don't think that God is okay with this. And for what it's worth, if that's the only thing I'm able to do, at least when all of it is said and done, I don't want it to be said of me that I said nothing, that I just stood by silently.
Yeah. Same. I wake up every day like, how do I address this today? What's the best way to address this? Um and he's trying to overwhelm, MAGA, not just him, but the MAGA movement is trying to overwhelm us, the opposition and those speaking out against it, trying to confuse you, what's real, what's not, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it requires 100 full cell allegiance to whatever the dictator, whatever the cult leader, and it's probably more of a cult than it is a dictatorship. Full cell allegiance to whatever the whim or the thinking of the cult leader is in that moment. And that's where we are. And the church, a large portion of the church, has a cult leader as its leader right now. It's not Jesus.
Yeah. All right. I think we said it.
All right. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. All right. Welcome to the after show, where Matt and I spent a couple of minutes focusing on fitness, physical fitness, whatever's going on with us, whatever's happening in the fitness world. I'm just training to be able to walk and run, but Matt's training. Got a show coming up, bearing down on you. Making huge changes, man. Your progress has been crazy.
Yeah, I hit over 40 pounds lost on the scale this morning, so I was happy about that.
Dude, yeah. 40 pounds. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I feel good. It feels good. I still got 35, 40 more to go, but
there's always more to go. But man, that's
where
celebrating with cake or carbs or something.
Yeah,
alcohol.
Yeah,
how can I stop this progress by celebrating?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good. I was thinking about it. I was looking back at some of the other times I've tracked weight loss the last number of years, and um, really 20 the end of 21 was the beginning of a lot of weight gain for me for various reasons. So
Usually
I'm at my
stress in my
lightest.
life.
Yeah, it was a lot of stress going on here at the church that we've talked about
So
some
you're
on
at
here.
your
But
lightest since 21, huh?
yeah, that's when I started putting on a lot of weight. So I'm getting back to that, getting closer to where I want to be. But yeah, feels good. And then I worked out at CrossFit, and it was more of a running workout, really high cardio. So I weighed myself after and lost another couple of pounds of sweat during that. So I was like, I want to see, I want
That's
to see that
awesome.
number go down more. But yeah, so yeah, sticking to it. Yeah, I need to find a time. We head to Charlotte next week. Um, so I'm worried about that, like traveling. Um, so I'm trying to come up with a good game plan to stick with the diet. There'll be a lot of walking and activity, so I'm not, even if I can't go and get a lift in. I always get a lift or two in when I'm there. So I'm not worried about that end of it. I'm worried more about the diet end of it. So
Take for me,
um,
I always when I travel, if I'm trying to do well, I always try to take a whole bunch of stuff with me that is that I know is doable. So I'm not
yeah,
trying to read labels in an airport
yeah,
or So I've got all of that stuff with me, and two, giving yourself permission um, to not have to be neurotic about it, which is hard. When you're at that point where you're really on the downward slope, you've lost so much weight. You're like, I know I'm not going to go back probably 10 pounds or even 5 pounds, but even 1 or 2 pounds, like mentally, like it's tough,
yeah,
when you get
yeah.
there. But also, I mean, you've done it. You're not going to completely destroy, your progress, even if you're not perfection while you're gone. But it's a mental
No,
game,
that's
right? I mean, weight
a good
loss
point. Yeah,
is always it's a mental game.
total mental game. Yeah. Um, yeah. So trying to maintain the strength. The other day, yesterday, I was feeling weaker. I was feeling some of the lack of carbs in my system and all that. But overall, that the weightlifting and stuff's going well too. So
Yeah, sadly, losing weight will do that to you as well. Like
yeah,
as that
yeah,
muscle, you lose muscle in that process as well, and you're like,
yeah.
I'm not
Unfortunately,
lifting I'm losing weight, which is great, but I'm not as strong as I was, and
yeah.
that's not fun.
No, no, but it's good. How are you?
Yeah, things are going okay for me. In PT, finally jogging and running. So I might actually see the light at the end of the tunnel on PT. So I don't know how much longer I have, but maybe a month or 2 months at the most. I think my visits are going to start spreading out from 2 a week to starting to wean off of those. That's good. I rarely think about the fact now that I had surgery and had an injury other than when I'm in PT. So that's a good feeling, as well. Not back up to steam on cardio or workout or stuff like that, but am trying to lose, some of the extra body fat right now in order to help some of that heart stuff and things that's going on, as you get older. So that's where I am, and right now that's going well, and that's the goal is to bring that weight down to probably, I don't know. I don't have a percentage in mind for body fat, but I think probably needs to be as low as possible in a healthy place. 10 to 12% would be nice. So
Hmm.
we'll see.
That's tough to maintain.
It, it is tough to maintain. I guess if it's 15% or under,
There you
I should be happy, Matt, but,
go.
get neurotic a bit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you do. You do. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Are you gonna do a show? You still have your coach, right? For
Yeah, I do still have the coach. There are shows that happen in the spring. We had both kind of agreed probably if I did another one, it would be in the fall. So doing a show is still on the horizon. It's still a possibility. It just kind of remains to be seen. I think whether or not I can truly. I mean, anybody can do a show, but are you going to be an embarrassment to yourself? So I think that kind of probably remains to be seen as to whether or not I will be able to do enough to put me in competition shape by a show.
Hmm.
But the good news is, from over the years, I have enough muscle from lifting for a long time that a large part of it is really just about cutting body fat for guys like me and you who've been working out for so long. It's just simply more about maintaining muscle. You're not going to build a huge amount of muscle at this point in your life. But the difference between somebody who is an embarrassment and somebody who is looks really good doesn't have much to do with muscle at this point. It's more about that body fat
Right.
percentage.
Yeah. 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 Um, this year will just be more for fun at the gym, and I'll do it again next year
You
too.
say that now, but 2 or 3 weeks out from that, I don't know. Looking at yourself in the
Yeah.
mirror, we'll see.
We'll
You,
see.
you might you might surprise yourself.
I know that there's some folks like me that are using it to motivate them to get leaner, and then there's some folks in there that already ripped shredded up. That
They don't count. Ignore them.
yeah,
They're
that's
genetic
true.
freaks, or they're 20 years younger than us,
Well, yeah, I
or
was
they're
looking
on
at the
just
list.
a crap load of PEDs.
Yeah, I was looking at the list. There's a lot of younger guys. There's a few of us older gentlemen. And my son, they put our names on the wall in the gym, and my son's been coming in, and he saw my name up there. He's like, "Dad, you're doing that?" I was like, "Yes, I am."
Yes, I am, boy.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, all right,
All right, man.
cool,
Have a good
man.
week. Looking forward to hearing the
You
progress
too.
next week.
All right, take it
Take
easy.
care.